We're on to week 3 of the NFL season. I'm Nick Whalen. He's John McKechnie. We're going to be giving you our best bets of the week for week 3 in the NFL. John, solid week for both of us in week 2. Saw scoring back on the rise. It wasn't a total underfest like we saw in week 1, but a very interesting board awaits us now in week 3. As we do every week, we'll each give out our 3 favorite plays of the week. Could be a side, could be a total, could be a team total, really anything you want, John. I know you got some sides this week. I'm mixing up some sides and totals. We'll talk some Survivor. We'll talk some Circa Million contest. We'll give you a parlay. We'll give you a teaser of the week, and we will end out with our locks. We'll also give you some prop bets to consider for Sunday's slate. John, I'll let you lead us off. Your first best bet of the week.
Boy, first best bet of the week. We got a loaded show here. We got a lot of ground to cover. And we're going to do it. And we're going to start off with this Chargers-Broncos game. I like the Chargers here, given just 2.5. So it's a friendly number. You know, a field goal gets us to where we need to go. I think that you could say that this is a reactionary pick in the sense that, you know, the Broncos, that they lose last week against Indianapolis, and the defense looks a little bit shaky. But I kind of take this back to week 1 as well. Like Denver, for as hyped as they were coming into the season, I mean, there were pundits just going out and saying like, hey, they're my AFC pick. I think they're going to make the Super Bowl, that type of thing. The offense isn't quite there right now, I don't think. I think that Nick's just hasn't looked as sharp this year. I think that Peyton, the way that he's kind of moving around the target rotation, he hasn't found the perfect one yet. And I think on the other side, the Chargers just look really effing good so far. I think that their 2 games, I'm pretty sold on them being a team that if you could bet them right now to win the AFC West, I think I would make that bet before the end of this weekend, because if and when, of course, they do win this game, I think those odds are going to move pretty considerably in the Chargers' favor. So give me the Chargers to cover just that 2.5 here to start us off.
And if indeed, or when indeed, they do win this game, John, a nice little stretch of schedule coming up here for the Chargers. You get the Giants next week, the Commanders at home after that, then Miami, Indy, Minnesota. Who knows what's going to be going on with that team at quarterback at that point in the year. Tennessee and Pittsburgh, a defense that has been disappointing so far. So those are your next 7 after this Broncos game. Decent chance, you would think, for the Chargers to potentially build a bit of a cushion in that division. John, I've taken us to the early window for my first play. I actually have 2 that I like on this game. The official play is going to be the under 42.5. But this is one of many dogs that I'm sniffing around this week. And you can still find the Cleveland Browns, John, at plus 8.5 right now in some markets. There are some 7.5s out there as well. There were some 9.5s earlier in the week. So kudos or cahoots, as Keon Coleman would say, to those who jumped on that. I think we get a low-scoring game. I think we get 2 really good defenses. You know, the Browns are obviously a very difficult team to evaluate. They're going to be big dogs every week. They can't really do much offensively. I love what I saw in week 1 on the defensive side of the ball, holding Cincinnati to one of its worst offensive games in a long time. And look, you were in the house, John. You were in Baltimore along with Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis and company last week. You see the final score and you think, oh, just a cakewalk like we expected for the Ravens. You know that was not the case. You know this was a close game into the third quarter. Derrick Henry had 5 carries for 5 yards in the first half. Like, Green Bay has been incredible so far. That defense has been dominant, not taking anything away from that. I think that can continue, but the running game has not been great. It's been high volume, but they're not ripping off big plays with Josh Jacobs. And look, I don't think the Packers lose this game straight up, but I could see this being a, 21-14, 21-17 type of game because, Green Bay and Detroit went under this number. By the way, that game only finished at 40 in week 1. We just saw Detroit put up 52 on the Chicago Bears last week. But Green Bay, when they build a lead, they don't necessarily put the pedal to the metal. It's a team that likes to run away and hide. They just pound Josh Jacobs in the second half. So I think it's not the toughest game so far for Green Bay. In fact, the schedule and the line would say it's their easiest, but I think this is an interesting spot as Green Bay gets away from Lambeau Field for the first time this year. So I like the under 42.5. And look, I don't know if it's going to make the official card, but if I'm picking a side here, I'm taking the Browns with the 8.5.
I think the Browns are kind of like those live dogs this year. I think their defense should be able to kind of help you get to this number. The levee really didn't break in Baltimore until the fourth quarter, and there was defensive touchdown and then an interception from Wiggins that set up another touchdown. So defense really not all at fault for those 41 points.
Yeah, Packers also down Jaden Reed. They could be without 2 starting offensive linemen. I don't think we see a points fest here. And last thing I'll mention, we do have kind of competing trends here because the Packers, especially under Matt LaFleur, have been fantastic early in the season. 17-6 ATS in September, 8-1 against the number in September road games. But John, home dogs of at least 7 points in the first 9 weeks of the season since 2020 are 37 10-2. Again, that's home dogs of at least 7 points in the first 9 weeks of the season. 37 10-2 since 2020. 18 1-2 against the spread over the last 3 seasons. So again, you can always find a trend that pushes you one way or the other, but a pretty strong one there for me on the Browns. Your next play, John, taking a look at a divisional matchup in the NFC West.
Yep. So this is a very West Coast heavy card for me today and what I'm focusing on. But I do like the 49ers, again, giving 2.5 against the Cardinals, and similar to the Chargers pick there. But I think in the Niners case, we're just kind of getting an overly discounted side here. Like Mac Jones is not great. I think we can agree on that. But Mac Jones is not he's not terrible. He's really not that big of a downgrade from Brock Purdy. I think this number looks a lot different if Brock Purdy is starting. I think we're looking at, the 49ers 4.5, maybe even 5 in this particular spot. And I don't think that there's that huge of a difference between Purdy and Mac Jones. I know that the 49ers are kind of banged up in some other spots. We're still going to have George Kittle out there and stuff like that. But ultimately, I still think that this is a 49ers team that is superior. I think we're getting them at the nice low price of minus 2.5. I will say that, like you were talking about with some competing trends, there is one that flies in my face here. Shanahan has not actually been good against the Cardinals against the spread. That's been kind of the one team in the division that gives him some trouble. 6-9-1 against the spread overall, 2-5-1 against the spread against the Cardinals. At home, obviously lost both the games against the Cards last year. I'm seeing a reversal this time around. I think I'm doubly emboldened by the fact that Mac Jones got his first start of the season last week, so he's already kind of in the mix, in the fold here. Friendly number. Give me just a field goal to get us there. Give me the Niners here.
The question is, do we know it's going to be Mac Jones? Because we saw Brock Purdy running around at practice on Wednesday, and the expectation is he's going to be out there in some capacity on Thursday. Does that change things for you? Is that part of the idea? Is you lock this in and maybe the number rises if it is Purdy? Is a hampered Brock Purdy a significant upgrade over a full strength, fully formed Mac Jones?
I think given the initial injury timeline, I would rather see Mac Jones out there than like a 75% Brock Purdy. I have seen those reports on Purdy. It's a good sign for his availability here soon, but I think that the Niners don't have to rush him back. I mean, it's a long season. We're only into week 3 of it. You have a competent quarterback that you made a point of getting this off season to be the backup just in case in the case of Mac Jones. So for me, that wasn't a huge factor. I'm still, as it stands, being a little bit hard-headed about it maybe, but expecting Mac Jones to be the guy ultimately, even with Brock Purdy making that progress in practice.
All right, for my second game, John, I'm taking us to the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois, about an hour south of where I'm stationed here in Milwaukee. Give me the Dallas Cowboys. Give me 1.5 points. Really interesting situation here where earlier this morning, the Dallas Cowboys are where they are still at FanDuel, 1.5 point dogs. They were 1.5 point favorites at DraftKings. And that number is still slightly in favor of Dallas, now down to a 0.5 point at DK. But a little bit of division there between the two major books. I'm surprised this number is not a little bit higher. One, because Dallas is such a public team. They're coming off a win. You haven't heard a single positive thing about the Chicago Bears in the last 2 weeks. And yet we have Chicago still favored by 1.5. And I don't really get it. I know, Dallas is without its starting center now and Cooper Beebe. I know they have Deron Bland out. You gave up 500 yards of offense to the Giants. I understand all that. But the Bears made J.J. McCarthy look like a competent quarterback in week 1 in that fourth quarter. The Bears got absolutely trounced by a Detroit Lions team that couldn't do anything offensively against Green Bay. And sure, maybe that says more about the Packers than anything else. I think both defenses are bad. There's a reason this total is now north of 50. I think the Bears are going to score. I think the Cowboys are going to score more. I think that Bears defense is worse. You're without at least 2 major pieces in that secondary. We're not going to see Kyler Gordon. Jalen Johnson might be done for the season. They have injuries at linebacker. The defensive line has been among the worst in the NFL. And, maybe this changes with no BB, but the Dallas running game has actually been solid. I mean, Javonte Williams is like a top 3 running back in fantasy right now. And that is not something I thought would be part of this offense. I think Dallas is picking up confidence. I think that was a huge come from behind win last week. And I think the Cowboys go in and put up 30 plus on this Bears team. Going to be very difficult for Caleb Williams to keep up with the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll give you a trend here. Dak Prescott 39-12 straight up against sub 500 teams in his career. Give me the Cowboys to go on the road, win outright as a slight dog. All right, Jonathan, on to your third and final game. You are sticking in the NFC West. Rams heading out to Philadelphia this weekend. What do you like in this one?
So I am going to take the Rams here. And this matchup reminds me of one of like the worst takes I've ever had in terms of like how it aged and like the multiple levels of it. When we were doing the playoff pod last year, I said, we're going to hammer the Eagles, but don't get ahead of yourself because their ride ends after this weekend. They're going to get smoked by the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship. Don't even worry about it. But this weekend they're going to kill the Rams. The Rams were the only team that really bothered the Eagles the entirety of the postseason last year, of course. But I think it's important that the Rams were able to get through that potential trap game against Tennessee last week, being on the East Coast, as we established a little bit last week. I think that McVay and the Rams have been not overly bothered by those body clock games going west to east. And as good as I think the Eagles are, I think they are somewhat beatable. And I think that even if they do win this game against the Rams, which of course is within the realm of possibility, they don't seem like a blow you out type of team. And the Rams are very good at keeping it close in their own right as well. So I think ultimately, I think that lack of passing game that we've seen from Philly actually comes back to bite them a little bit in this spot. And I think that the secondary for Philly hasn't looked all that good. I mean, Mahomes, I don't know what happened to him on that one deep throw last week, but it's like, what, if we're having a whole different conversation about this Philadelphia secondary, if he lands that shot. So they've looked a little bit shaky. Obviously they look shaky in the season opener against the Cowboys, where they were benefiting a lot from some really uncharacteristic drops from CeeDee Lamb. Don't think that ends up being the case here for the Rams. I do like the Rams to keep this one within a field goal. I give them a puncher's chance to win this one outright at the link, but as it stands, I'm just taking the points with LA.
Yeah, I think the hook is big here, right? Getting this at 3.5. I'm with you. I think this is somewhat of a vengeance spot for the Rams. They feel like they let one slip away in the divisional round. And I think you're coming back with a better team than they had last season. Like I like Davante Adams now more than I did whatever version of Cooper Kupp we saw at the end of last season. And I think this is going to be the biggest test so far for that shaky Philly secondary, trying to contain Puka Nacua and Davante Adams. So I like that one, grabbing points with a dog. John, for my third and final pick, I'm going with another dog, and we are taking some points here with the New York Football Giants. 6.5 is the number. They're at home, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night. Look, I don't think the Giants win this game. I want to be clear. I'm not picking a major upset here, but 6.5 to me is a little bit high considering the Chiefs are making the trip cross country. Giants are 2-19 straight up in night games since 2019. That's a pretty healthy 5-year sample that implies that this may not go well straight up for the Giants. But at the same time, man, I don't see it with the Chiefs right now. I really don't. I am a big Rashee Rice believer. I think when he comes back, we're going to see a much better version of this offense. Is it going to be 2021, 2022 Chiefs? No, I don't think so. That may never be coming back. But I think missing Rashee Rice is a huge deal. We'll see on Xavier Worthy this week. It's kind of like last week, where if he's out there, you kind of wonder, all right, how many snaps is he playing? What does he look like? Is he making it through this game? That's not a major factor for me. The fact is, though, the Chiefs just don't run away from teams. They really don't. And I do feel better about the defense than I did coming out of week one. I thought that was a disastrous performance against the Chargers, really locked down the Eagles, outgained the Eagles, barely, held them over 200 yards. But at the same time, we saw this over and over last season. We have a 20-plus game sample where the Chiefs, like, even when they're facing a bad team, like there was a game last year, John, where they faced the Cleveland Browns. The Browns turned it over 6 times in that game. The Chiefs won and covered, but they won that game 21-7. It's like the old Chiefs win that game 42-0, and like they just don't put beatdowns on teams. And I don't even know if the Giants are a bad team. They're not a good team, but they're not a true bad team. We saw that offense wake up last week against Dallas, and this is a much better defense, but I think the Giants can get to 14, 17 points. I don't think the Chiefs can get to the high 20s anymore. That's just not really who this offense is, especially going up against a very good Giants front. So to me, this is a Chiefs win, but I see this as like a 21-17, 23-17 type of game where the Giants are able to cover.
Yeah, I think that people will circle this one as like the proverbial get right spot for the Chiefs, but what does getting right look like as they're currently constructed? I'm just a little bit pessimistic on this particular Chiefs team. Like I think the book is long from being written on Patrick Mahomes, but this particular iteration, this is far and away, I think, the worst supporting cast that he's had, and
Yep.
it showed. I mean, this is the first time they've started 0-2. Obviously, they're not going to start 0-3. At least we don't think so. But I think that this is not going to be like that convincing, like, oh yeah, the Chiefs are back type of win.
No, I don't think they have it in them. I don't think they have the personnel right now. And they better not start 0-3, John, because your Baltimore Ravens are coming to Arrowhead in week 4. John, it's time to talk some Survivor, some Circa Million. And we do that thanks to our friends over at Circa. It's football season. The best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino, downtown Las Vegas. The best pool in history is out there at Circa. Stadium Swim, 3 levels, 6 pools, a 143-foot screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, day beds, stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year with temperature-controlled pools. It's a great place to catch all the games all season long. Stadium Swim, go check it out. It's located at Circa Resort and Casino, downtown Las Vegas. You can book today at circalasvegas.com. All right, John, let's start with some Survivor talk here. Pretty tame first 2 weeks. We haven't had the massive carnage, certainly, that we saw last season. Looking at the numbers from Circa Survivor in week 2, we did have over 1,000 entries eliminated, but this is a pool of over 18,000. So 1,180 went out in week 2. The biggest chunk of those going out on the Pittsburgh Steelers, 491 entries. 355 went out on Minnesota. 147 went out on Miami. Bless your heart if you put a $1,000 entry on the Miami Dolphins in week 2. And we had 104 go out in crushing fashion on the Houston Texans in that. I got a lot of things to say about Houston, John, in that depressing effort against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So as we spin it ahead now to week 3, some very obvious spots, of course, Buffalo, Seattle, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, KC, Atlanta, I think will all be at the top of the list. Which of those big favorites to you is the biggest trap?
Yeah, so I like the sheer volume of options that we have this week. I feel like in the first 2 weeks, maybe it was a little bit more stratified, like that maybe there's like 3 really strong ones and the rest you had to squint a little bit. But I think we're going to see some kind of spread out action as far as survivor pools are concerned this week. I'm leaning towards the Seahawks, but being like my personal survivor pick, I'm a little bit scared about it. Like the Saints just somehow finding a way to get off the schneid. But I would say of the potential traps, for me, it's either the Falcons or the Chiefs. It would just be so. There's something like cosmic, I think, about the Chiefs somehow finding a way to lose, and like that being the sort of like death knell of their season, at least early on. And then the Falcons. Everyone saw them look good on Sunday night, but I think that had a lot more to do with Minnesota looking and being bad, especially with McCarthy at the helm there. So I don't want to double count that. Plus the fact that this is a divisional game. The Falcons are on the road. So I don't think the Falcons are so much in the circle of trust to where it's like it's a total gimme, even against the Carolina Panthers, that they take care of business. I think at the very least that game could be a little bit sweaty for those that back the Falcons. But for me, I think the way I'm leaning would be Packers if I still have them available, or Seahawks, I think.
Yeah, I think Seahawks are the way I want to go. I have four entries going, and I'm not going to put them all on Seattle, but I think I'm leaning like 2 on Seattle, maybe 1 on Buffalo just to get that extreme security, and then maybe Tampa Bay. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how I feel about the Jets with Tyrod Taylor versus Justin Fields, but I really want to avoid burning the Buffalo Bills if possible, John, because that to me is the team that you want to save. Like, for one, if you're playing in Circus Survivor specifically, they don't play the Thanksgiving or Christmas week. So in theory, yeah, you got a lot of weeks where you could burn them, but they play the Saints at home next week. They play the Patriots at home the week after. They play Carolina at the end of October. You obviously get another Dolphins game in November. Like there are just too many spots. They'll get the Bengals without Burrow in December. A team like Seattle, a team like Tampa Bay, there aren't those, and certainly Atlanta, there aren't necessarily these obvious spots where you could use them. Like Buffalo's the team I want to keep in my back pocket. So I think we'll see in non-circa pools, lower entry value. I think we'll see a lot of Buffalo because people just want to get through. But I think in the higher stakes pools, people are going to go out of their way to not take the Bills.
I think that's right. I mean, good. I mean, people had talked about before the season the difficulty or lack thereof of the Bills' schedule, but laying it out like that, it's like, my goodness. I mean, I think we might be looking at like an undefeated Bills team going into November if that is the case, which obviously it is. So, yeah, I think hang on to the Bills. That you got plenty of other solid options, I believe, this week.
All right, in terms of Circa Million, won't spend quite as much time on this one, but I will say, John, no one is 10-0 through 2 weeks. That includes me, obviously, not even close to 10-0. We do have 24 entries at 9-1. The vast majority of the pool right now sitting somewhere between 5-5 and 3-7. Like if you're 4-6 right now, you're feeling great after all that carnage in week 1. Things went a little bit better collectively in week 2. The 5 most popular plays went 2-3. That last week, majority plays went 7-9 overall, much better than week 1 when, of course, 10 of the 12 most popular plays lost. But I'll use this as an opportunity, John, to ask you, like, what games just missed your top 3? Like, if you're putting together a Circa Million card, we know your 3 favorite plays, but what would have been next up?
Let's see. What else was I really digging in on? It was the Cowboys, actually. I felt pretty strongly about how they've looked. I thought even in defeat, they looked really good against the Eagles and the Bears. I just feel like are a team that it's going to be a hard time getting out of their own way this year. So even with that one being at home, I did feel like the Cowboys were a spot to look at pretty closely, especially at books where they are getting the points at 1.5, something like that. So for me, the Cowboys were awfully tempting.
All right, let's get you some props here for NFL Week 3, John. Here's what I came up with on my initial pass. And, prop market's still populating to some degree as we record this on Thursday. I think Bijan Robinson has a massive day. Day against the Carolina Panthers. And that number, like you said, has crept into a little bit of uncomfortable territory. It was sitting out there at 1.5 heading into Week 3. So cahoots to you if you grab the look ahead. But, man, Raheem Morris, I came across this stat, John. Raheem Morris, 1-7-1 ATS as a road favorite in his career. That is very, very scary. Nonetheless, I think Bijan Robinson gets after this Carolina Panthers defense. We're going to play the over 112.5 rushing and receiving yards. Went over 170, by the way, last time these teams faced off late last season. Give me CeeDee Lamb, over 80.5 receiving yards, falling in line with what we think could be a shootout in Chicago. Dak Prescott, 2+ touchdown passes. Give me a Devontae Adams anytime touchdown, getting that at plus 170. Jordan Mason, I think he has a big week. His carries prop, John, at DraftKings is 18.5. I think we're going to see a lot of Jordan Mason, but I'm going to zag a little bit on that one. Over 14.5 receiving yards. Cincinnati's defense has given up 13 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns to running backs so far this season. We saw Dylan Sampson get loose in week 1. ETN, Tootin both scored on receptions out of the backfield. So I think Jordan Mason, the receiver, will be a part of that Minnesota offense. And then give me a George Pickens touchdown as well. I'm going all in on this Cowboys team.
Love that card. And you know what? You're in good company, especially when it comes to Jordan Mason. FanDuel has a price out there for 2 or more touchdowns from Jordan Mason at plus 350. Ooh. I'm interested in that. I think that the Vikings offense kind of, with Wentz taking over now, his first start, even against a bad defense like the Bengals, I think that they're going to be a little bit conservative. I think the offense flows through Jordan Mason. I think that he's going to get some cracks at the goal line. I think that this Bengals defense is terrible. So I think Minnesota going to be in scoring range a decent bit. Give me Jordan Mason 2 or more touchdowns at plus 350. Going back to one of the bets that I made earlier, dovetailing off of that, give me the under on Bo Nix, under 224.5 passing yards. I think he's been under this in 3 straight games. Make it a 4th. I think that the Chargers defense puts the clamps on these Broncos pass catchers. I think the pass rush gets Nix off his spot a little bit. I think that we're looking at more like 200 yards passing for Bo Nix as he's kind of running for his life against the Chargers on Sunday afternoon. And then lastly, I'm going back to the well that I went to last week because it slaked. It was good. Give me the under on Chase Brown rushing yards, under 65.5. You can get that at BetMGM. I think that conventional wisdom would say, well, Joe Burrow's, they're going to run the ball a lot more. It's like, that's fine. But like the Vikings know that, and the Vikings are really good at stopping that. So I think that if you get one dimensional in any way against this Vikings defense, Flores is just going to be licking his chops. I don't think that Chase Brown is quite like the playmaker to kind of get it done on his own. I think he needs some conditions working in his favor to get to this number. I'm taking the under on 65.5.
There's one thing we hate on this show, John. It's conventional wisdom. I love it. I love that Jordan Mason call, by the way, plus 350 on the 2 touchdowns. All right, parlay of the week, John. What do we got?
Okay. This one is a little bit out of character. I'm going all totals on this one.
Oh.
And I'm wearing 2 raincoats, all unders. We're going under 53.5 in the Ravens-Lions game. I think that one, the defenses will show up a little bit more, even with both of those teams scoring outrageously last week in particular. I'm a little bit surprised that the total in Vegas versus Washington is sticking at 44. That's, not a nothing burger as far as a total is concerned. If Daniels is limited or if Mariota ends up playing, I don't like that. I just don't think that Washington offense is going to score a ton. And I definitely don't think that the Vegas offense is either. So give me under 44 in that one. And then defensive struggle in that Broncos versus Chargers game. Give me the under 46. I think that the Broncos offense gets a little bit stuck in the mud this week as opposed to last. So give me that under 46.
I'm going back to the well. A money line parlay. We've missed it by one leg each of the last 2 weeks. The field goal situation, we'll call it, at the end of the Colts Broncos game is what did us in last week. But we nonetheless press on. Give me the Colts money line. I don't care. Taking it on the road at the Tennessee Titans. Give me the Texans money line. They avoid the 0-3 start. And give me the Cowboys money line in Chicago plus 489 for all 3 of those road teams to win straight up.